أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here once again. Today we're going to be talking about a brief Islamic perspective on investing in the stock market, a brief description of what it means to gamble, and then this recent phenomenon that occurred in the stock market, the short squeeze. Before we begin, I'd like to just mention a few disclaimers. One, these views may not represent the views of the Muslim Unity Center. Two, there may be a difference of opinions on these matters, and one should do their own research before coming to any conclusion, inshallah. And keep in mind that this is not financial advice. Keep in mind that this is not financial advice. So before we begin, we are very blessed to have two of our own community members here as our main speakers that will be presenting this topic today, and I will be moderating it. Today we have Syed Raza Ali Babar, who is my father, who has been in the Muslim community for a very long time. He's a retired executive engineer from Detroit Edison, and he's done a lot of work for the Muslim community throughout the years. Most notably, I would say, and I know he probably doesn't want me to mention this, but he was one of the original founding members of IAGD, of both Tawheed centers, of the Wayne State Masjid, Umar bin Khattab Masjid. And also he was a student of Maulana Maududi, who was one of the Islamic scholars in the 90s. His tafsir of Quran is one of the most widely read tafsir of Quran in our time today. So we're very blessed and honored to have him here. He's been investing in the stock market and part of the stock market for the last 20 years, mashallah. Not only that, but he also has a great background when it comes to business. He used to teach executive MBA courses at Wayne State University and University of Michigan. And he established the MBA program at Bahauddin Zakaria in Pakistan, which is one of the top business schools in the Asian continent. So alhamdulillah. Our other guest speaker is Dr. Abdul-Sattar Shakfa. How do I describe him? He's one of the unsung heroes of this community. He's one of those guys where he's behind the scenes. Whenever you need anything, he's there. By profession, he's a dentist, and he specializes in oral, maxillary, facial surgery, so he's also a surgeon, mashallah. And he's also one of my mentors and one of many mentor to many of the youth that are getting into investing, that are always looking to find other forms of income, to supplement their income, and he's been a great asset to our community, and he's also very an expert when it comes to the stock market and investing, inshallah. So without further ado, we'll start with my father, and we'll begin, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Today's topic I have been given to speak is on the Islamic perspective on investing or trading in the stock market. Before I get into that subject, it's important to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not prohibit believers and Muslims from acquiring blessings of Allah and the provisions that Allah has provided. I quote you an ayat from Quran al-Hakim, from Surah Al-Araf, ayat 32, which says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ قُلْ هِيَ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا خَالِصَةً يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ كَذَلِكَ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that who has prohibited zinat that Allah has created, the beautiful things, the adornments of life that Allah has created, and rizq tayyib that Allah has provided. Definitely these are for the mu'mineen in this life, and they are purely for mu'mineen, for Muslimeen on the day of Qiyamah. You know, we see in this world, Muslims and non-Muslims all can have the enjoyments of life, so to speak. They can have wealth, they can have, all kinds of luxuries of life. But Allah says on day of Qiyamah, it will be only for the people who are mu'mineen, who believe, and not for others. And then next ayat in this respect is also that Allah has placed some limitations, though, some restrictions on Muslims. قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَالْإِثْمَ وَالْبَغْيَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ وَأَنْ تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا وَأَنْ تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That indeed Allah has forbidden, say, O Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden all fawahish, all things which are lucid, all things which are shameful, so to speak. Whether they are open or they are hidden. And He has forbidden all acts of sin and rebellion against haqq, or to bring to have partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or say things about Allah that He has not said, and attribute those to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Islam prohibits all kinds of, so you acquire wealth within the limits that Allah has established. Don't transgress those limits. If you transgress, then your wealth is not a blessing. Your wealth becomes a curse that you will be accountable for on the day of Qiyamah. So, now getting into the topic that we have in front of us, investing, particularly living in this country, there are a lot of opportunities in various aspects of life. They could be actually going into business, going into investments, going into acquiring a profession and excelling in that profession, and acquiring all kinds of possessions and blessings. In terms of investing, that's one of the options. There are many options people have all over the world, actually, and also in this country, that you can acquire wealth by investing. One instrument which is available to people is investing through the stock market, where you become an owner in the business of a corporation. Particularly in this respect, we're talking about those corporations which are publicly traded. There are three main stock markets in this country. There is called New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and there is a Russell, which is for small cap companies and all that. Companies list themselves on the stock market, and there are certain rules and regulations they have to file, they have to obey, that are established by Security and Exchange Commission, and then they are approved and they are listed on the stock market to be able to trade. One of the benefits of that process, of that legal system, is that people can have some degree of confidence. I mean, nothing is foolproof ever, but people can gain some confidence that the information they are provided by those corporations is credible, is reliable, and sometimes they do lie and sometimes they do tell untruth. But if they are caught, then they are prosecuted and they pay the consequences. What is a stock? It is a share of a company's business. And by purchasing that stock, you become part owner in that company's business. As a result, you have certain rights. You are a shareholder, so if there's any decisions to be made about the running of that business, you get the right to vote. You also have a right to take share, to get your part of the profits of the company. By the same token, you're also liable for the losses of the company. If company goes under and it suffers losses, you have to pay that. Most of the times, the companies do that to list themselves on the stock market to raise capital so they can run the business. And sometimes companies also borrow money. They borrow money through the banking system, through other financial instruments, so that they can run their businesses. So from Islamic point of view, what we need to know is that when we make an investment in a stock, we must make sure that business is Sharia compliant, that it is not violating any of the basic principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated for us. So some very big classifications of that would be that we cannot buy a share in a company which is indulging into haram businesses. Haram businesses would be banking is a haram business. It is all based upon riba, usually. And Allah has prohibited that. It is also, we cannot invest in companies which are involved in gambling, casinos, all kinds of sports betting these days. It has become a big thing right now in America that there is many companies which have come into the market who are giving you the right to bet on sports and other things also. Restaurants, liquor, selling of meats, and there is a whole list over there. Any fawahish that I just read you an ayat, Allah says, Allah has prohibited all fawahish. And there are even, in Nevada, there is a prostitution house which is also listed on the stock market, and you can buy a stock in that. But Allah has prohibited all. Airlines do, generally speaking, one could say that airline business is okay, but they do serve liquor. They sell liquor, actually, in their aeroplanes, and as such, that becomes in the area of prohibition. Exploitation, Allah has prohibited exploitation. Allah Ta'ala says, do not do oppression upon people. La yaslimuna wa la yuslamun. Don't be oppressive to other people. Don't take undue advantage of it. So there are, these are just examples of unlawful businesses in which Muslims should not invest if we want to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and if we want to keep our risk halal. Okay, so there is a guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you do not mix, you do not disbelieve, you do not become one of the disbelievers. And do not exchange by signs for small. وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا بِآيَاتِي ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا. Do not, sometimes we see a benefit which sounds overwhelming, and we think it may be involving some deviation from the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then we argue with ourselves and we say, but the benefit is there, so maybe I'll just tweak it a little bit and get that back. Nothing is worth it, Somebody said there's nothing is worth in this world to buy hell for that. I mean, nothing. Hell is a very, very horrible place to want and to aim for. So, وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا بِآيَاتِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا وَإِيَّايَ فَاتَّقُونِ and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. If there is a business which we say predominant. For example, airlines. Airlines are doing, generally their travel business would be considered okay. But when they start selling liquor in the aeroplanes, then that becomes a mixing of haqq wa batil. Wala talbisul haqqa bil batil. See, whenever you mix haqq wa batil, the ultimate result is batil, because it's not possible to mix halal and haram and expect the outcome to be halal. It's always the other way. Whenever you mix right and wrong, the outcome is wrong. It's not right. It cannot be right. So therefore, from our point of view, following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandment, وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ, we cannot invest in those businesses. For example, I give you an example. General Electric is a very good company. It is basically a technology company. But it also has a financial part, a division, which loans money to people to buy those equipments and therefore earns a lot of money by interest. Therefore, from Islamic perspective, that company is not then a Sharia compliant company, and Muslims should stay away from it and follow that. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. You cannot mix them and expect that your risk will be halal. Therefore, we should stay away from that. Generally, these businesses which are listed on the stock market, even sometimes if you talk private companies which are not listed on the stock market, companies pay dividends to their shareholders from the earnings they make. Those dividends are profit sharing, and as such, they are halal as long as the business they were conducting was halal. Therefore, the dividend itself is halal. However, there are those situations where a company may not be earning any money and they are still paying dividend. Those dividends will be haram because they essentially end up borrowing money because they don't have any profits. So they end up borrowing money from financial institutions, and that is just because they want to keep themselves in the market. They want to keep attracting the investors because investors want some return. Even though they don't have any income, they don't have any profits, but they would go and borrow money to pay dividends to their shareholders. If that's the situation, then that dividend is not halal. That dividend is haram because it is riba involved in it. Therefore, we should stay away. We should do some due diligence on that and make sure that company is actually making money. In fact, my point of view is very straightforward, that we should look at that and say, if there is a company, even though it may be doing the right business and it's Sharia compliant as far as business is concerned, but it does not have any profits, does not make any money, it's a negative cash flow money, that company does not remain halal anymore, because now to run their operations and even to pay profits to their shareholders, they are borrowing money. And if they borrow money, then they are not a Sharia compliant corporation. Now, a lot of people also talk about making money by buying options. Options, there are generally two types of options. One are called call options and the other called put options. Call option is basically your idea that a stock is going to be going up in its market value. And the reason for that belief would be that they are running a profitable business, they are making more and more money, their rate of return is pretty good, therefore it will attract more shareholders, and so that becomes a function of demand and supply. There is a supply of certain number of stocks that company has. Some of those are already owned by other people, or shareholders, or even the board directors of the company, and so on and so forth, and institutions and all that. And there's certain float that available shares that the company can sell. So there is a limited supply of those shares, and if it is making money, then it is very good potential that more and more people want to buy it. So it's demand and supply. If supply is limited, demand is going up, the price will go up. So if that's your expectation, that company is going to be, stock is going to be going up, then you buy what is called a call option. Call option says that you have a right to buy the stock of that company at a certain predefined price within a certain time frame, like 1 year, 2 years, whatever. In some ways, it also is similar to options that are exercised in the real estate market. When a buyer goes and he looks at a house and he wants to buy it, but he's still not ready for many reasons. He's relocating from some other place to new place, or he may be trying to raise funds so that he can buy their house. They go and they put some, they call option to buy. By doing that, they put some down payment and they agree that within 1 year, I will pay so much, $100,000 for this house to buy from you. And if that person does not meet that commitment within that time frame and for that price, then that person really loses the money he has put there as a down payment for that call option. So stocks are similar. You say that I expect this price of this stock for General Electric or for any company for that matter. I will expect that to be at $20 in 1 year, and then you say, okay, I want to buy that option. You pay a certain price. If it goes to that level, you make money, or even higher, you make money. If it doesn't, then you lose your down payment that you put in there. Similarly, there's a put option. In that put option, you have a right to sell. So in this case, it was right to buy. You can buy at a certain price. And the other one is put is you're putting down. You're saying, I have a right to sell this particular equity, this particular stock at a certain price in a certain time. That you, for example, expect that a company has been losing money and it will continue losing money. So it has a stock price which is a such and such point. Well, this is an anomaly here because as a Muslim, you probably would not involve in that situation. If a company is losing money, that means it's not even Sharia compliant for us to buy in that company because that company is borrowing money to run its operations and also to pay any kind of dividend if it is paying that. So, but the idea, the concept basically is that there are certain factors, certain reasons. That could be financial or those could be some other. For example, if there's a business which you think is going to go obsolete, okay, like a lot of restaurants have gone out of business due to this coronavirus. And if you think that if there are some large corporations which own a lot of restaurants, if you think that they will never be able to come out of that, and they will go out of business at some point in time, then you can do the put option on that, and you can say that I think this company will go down and down and down, and in 1 year I put so much money, I want to buy it for, right now it is $100, I want to buy it for $5. Okay, so that would be the situation. Now, in that case, again, you have a right to sell, but not an obligation. Okay, you don't have to. You're not bound by it. But you can buy it at that point. The seller can sell it at that point. So, in my opinion, most people who are working full time, engineers, doctors, whoever, they should usually stay away from these things because these things are not part-time. These things require some full-time focus and full-time attention. A lot of people try to do it on the side. Okay, I can make some extra money, which is not a bad idea by itself, but it does not usually come out right for those people who do it on a part-time basis. Now, in fact, people who are professionals and who are involved in some full-time occupation of any kind, business, profession, whatever, those should not even get into trading of any kind. They should be looking more for investment. They should be looking for sound business. They should evaluate their fundamentals, as they call it. What is the business? How much are they making? What kind of profits they have? What's their history? How have they been performing? What kind of management they have? And all of those good things. They should look at those and decide that, okay, this company has plenty of potential to go up in its price because it's doing a good business. It's a good business, it's Sharia compliant from our point of view, and make an investment. And in that investment, they can follow some kind of basic rules. It is okay from time to time to sell your shares, particularly if you think that it has come to a level where potential for further growth may not be there. At that point in time, it's a good idea to take your profits. Or sometimes you think that a particular stock has reached a high point from where it will not be very easy for it to go any higher, then it's okay to sell it. That's not trading though, that is called, selling, taking your profits. You sell a stock so you can get your money out of that. But generally speaking, investment is an investment. Look at it from that point of view for a longer horizon. Longer horizon could depend upon people at their age, at their responsibilities, and so on and so forth. If somebody is in the retirement age, their perspective of long term could be much shorter. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years at the most. People who are younger, who are in their 20s and 30s, their perspective of long term could be 30 years, 40 years. And a short term could be 1 year, 2 years. So look at your own particular situation, your upcoming financial requirements, what kind of money, if you are thinking of buying a house, for an example, and you are investing from that point of view, then you may be looking at, you want to buy a house in 5 years, so that your long term really is 5 years. You want to make an investment so that you can get some return and go and buy your house. Or you have some children who are going to go to college, you want to pay for their tuition. So from those point of view, it depends on your needs that you look at and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So you look at short term, you look at long term. And from that point of view, you can make your investment decisions. Now, I do have a list of some potential, I did some research and I found some stocks which are like totally debt-free. I mean, they have no debt. They are operating totally based on their own. Oh, okay, there's some prohibited things. We already talked about them, so you should not get into those. But there are some stocks. I have a list over there for that slide, which...
I have the slides.
Give you some ideas here. You can.
I have the slides at the end.
Okay, so that's fine.
We'll go to Dr.
That's fine. But I think with that, I will turn over to the moderator, and then we'll come back and answer questions.
So next, we'll start with Dr. Abdul-Sattar with the short selling, short squeeze, and GameStop phenomenon. The idea was that many of our youth were coming and asking us questions. Many parents were coming and asking questions. Can we do this? Is this permissible? My son wants to do this. And so first we want to get that perspective, inshallah, of what it was and what was happening, and then we'll continue further, inshallah. So Dr. Sattar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. So what is a short sale? What was happening with the stock market the last 2 weeks? So one of the things that our honored guest mentioned, one of the Islamic things to do is not to invest in losing companies. So that would be the first cue. GameStop is a has-been. AMC is a has-been. So to answer that initial question, no one should ever invest in things like this, that herd mentality, fighting Wall Street, trying to bankrupt them and whatnot. What happened was, one intelligent person found that this company was heavily shorted. That means the total float for GameStop was 69 million shares. 30% of it is held by passive investment funds. At all times, any stock in the stock market is always held by a Vanguard fund, a mutual fund. It's a passive fund. They buy any stock that's listed because that's what they do as a passive investment. They hold these shares, they're not traded, they're taken out of the float. And then you have another 30% that's controlled by insiders probably, or that's at least what this researcher found. And then what you have left in float is probably 4 million shares altogether, priced at $10. At a $10 stock, at the time Reddit page had 2.7 million users. 2.7 million people buying one share each or two shares each would take the entire float out of the market. Now, the passive funds do not trade daily. They buy the stock and they hold it. What a short seller does is they would go and borrow the share from a passive fund and sell it to the other buyers. So what they're doing is they're borrowing the same share that the Vanguard fund is still holding and selling it. So now what they're doing is they're splitting the share by two. And that's how you end up with a short that's over 100% of the float. Now you've created a synthetic situation where you have 150% of shares outstanding, but the only possible number of shares that you can buy out in the market is 4 or 5 million. So when everybody buys the shares, all the retail investors bought them, there were no more shares to buy or trade. It's empty. So what happens, these funds that were short had to cover their position because they received what's called a margin call, meaning the price of the stock had gone up so much that they had to go back and buy the shares from all these Reddit users. And at the time when they buy it, they can't pick a price. They buy what's called a market, meaning they would go and the computer would force them to purchase at any price listed. And every time you sell a share for $1, the next selling price will be $1.50, $2. It's like bidding, $3. So if you actually watch it, you can see the price multiplied by tens of dollars per minute. It's insane. And that's why the rise of the stock was parabolic. It's known that it was going to crash, but these funds knew they would get their money back, but they couldn't wait because the Vanguard funds that were loaning them the shares called them in. They said, we want them because people want to sell their positions. You had companies who invested under $10 for 200 and 300 million and cashed out for 700, 900 million and 1.5 billion. These funds had their shares purchased ahead of time, and now they want to sell them. So the synthetic short from these other funds that borrowed had to give them back to them. That's what a short sale is. You borrow it. You don't actually own the share. And while you're borrowing it, you're paying interest on it. That's the other issue. So when all the single traders were blocked from purchasing or selling, I should say, not selling, just purchasing new shares, was because you had to have enough collateral cash against it. And everybody was upset because they were not allowed to buy. And that actually was a very positive thing. Because we'll see in a minute with some of the photos, if you want to go to the next slide. Well, everybody knows what happened, The rise was very evident, but the fall was a sure thing. So anybody who was betting against the stock, was going to win no matter what. As a disclaimer, I was betting against the stock right near the peaks. And the only reason I did is because you have to put enough cash against your position, and that's what's called a fully marginable position, which means whatever shares you short, you have to put enough cash every day against it to avoid paying interest and renting it. So the problem with the short is the stock could go to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. It could go to infinity, and you'd have to keep putting money against it. So you're locking money against that position. Of course, for somebody like me, I am doing a much smaller position than a fund that's putting 2 and 3 and 4 billion. And even at that point, these funds had to close the positions because the shares they were borrowing had to be returned. And they had to pay any price outstanding to buy the shares and return them. The problem we ran into is people were buying all the way, you went back. Yeah. So people were buying here and here at the peaks because they thought they're beating Wall Street. The problem is the number of shares that were covered have already gone and passed. So the short interest went from 79% to 14%, which means the stock is ready to evaporate. And that's exactly what happened. The problem is everybody who's short now made money. Everybody who went long is weeping. Here, go to the next slide. And the next one. No, yeah, back up to this one. So this is what everybody, it's a meme, and that's what everybody was crying about, saying how it's an investment, it's going to return, it's going to do this. The idea here is you should stay away from these hypes, and really, I mean, everybody who's investing in these things should really just forget about it. It's really noise, it's entertainment for anything, and just steer clear from it. For all the teenagers, really for that purpose. I know they made it easy with these apps. I know they made it, safe that you can buy crypto and make a lot of money and turn around and do all these things. It really isn't for everyone. Long-term investing really is the best way to do it. Buying credible, successful companies, filtering out the noise, and concentrating on other things is really the way to do it. Can you back up? No. This one more. So this is actually my trading portfolio from 2016 as an example, and I'm very active. I beat the market initially, but then if I had used the money that I invested to buy an S&P fund or a NASDAQ, which is technology, I would be up 175% from the time I started to today without doing anything, without lifting a finger. So if you buy credible companies, you're guaranteed to make phenomenal returns. Hopping around in day trading is very difficult and not as profitable. So the whole craze with cryptocurrency rising one day to hundreds of thousands and dropping in tens of thousands is just a craze. And it's really not ideal. Now, Islamically, that's the whole idea. Just investing in a company that's losing money is kind of just a lost cause. In a way, it could be, somebody could call it gambling. I mean, they call it speculation. I don't know if it's really speculating. Everybody knows that a company like GameStop that sells Pokemon cards is really out of flavor. This is done. Or AMC for that matter. And AMC was pretty smart. They actually raised money twice when that happened. The stock was trading at $1, and then they actually saw the craze, and they just diluted and sold more shares. Now they're okay for the next 2 years. You want to go to the next one? I think that's about it. Yeah. And these are just more memes of what's happening. Everything's burning, and everybody thinks it's going to come back and it's going to be okay.
Jazakumullah khair. So the question some of the youth have is, how do I find a halal stock? There is an app called Zoya. I think it's pretty good. In fact, they had GameStop as one of the stocks that you couldn't invest in because they were borrowing money. So it's pretty Sharia compliant. So that's just some information for all of us out there. Yeah. Oh, I think there's a small fee, but there's free options, and then there's a small if you want more details. So, oh, yes.
I'm not a knowledgeable person or experienced in short selling, but from Islamic perspective, I want to make a couple of points that you should keep in mind. Number one, the main reason somebody will, those gamblers out there who are trying to make money out of companies by creating shorting, buying it at a price right now and then selling it at a price now at a higher price and then buying it later at a lower price. Mostly those companies that they target are the ones who are losing money, who are not profitable. Right, brother?
Yeah.
Because if they were making money, then the expectation they will go down in price will not be there. At least very hard to justify. So number one, if they are losing money, then they are borrowing money to run their operation and to pay their employees to stay in business. So from Islamic point of view, then that will be a no-no company to invest in, buying or selling. Number two, when somebody sells a stock now at a higher price to buy it later at a lower price, they actually borrow that stock from the stockbroker, right?
Correct.
From the stockbroker. And stockbroker does not give you that stock for free. Stockbroker charges you interest. So you are borrowing that from the stockbroker, paying that stockbroker interest, and selling it now because you think you can later buy it for half the price or even 1/10 of the price, okay? So those two Islamic guidances that will prohibit for a Muslim to get into short selling. Okay, now short squeeze is a different thing, okay? So that brother has very well address that. But I just want to give you those caveats so you understand that from Islamic point of view, short selling is not really an investment. That is not only gambling, but it also involves riba. Both ways. So
There is one
stay
way
away from it.
to synthesize a short that's halal by actually buying puts and selling puts. And that's essentially what options are. When you do an option, is you're paying a premium to elect or take a position at your discretion with your option if you want to, with a set strike price. So when, for example, a stock that's trading at 200, you know it's going to drop, you could buy what's called a put. So you could say, between now and January of 2023, I will pay somebody a premium of X to have the right to sell the stock to that person at a certain strike price. So if the stock is trading at 100 today, you can say, I choose to possibly exercise the option to sell it for 50 in the next 6 months, and you pay a fee for that. If the stock drops to 30, now that person that you gave the deposit to is obligated to buy shares from you at 50. And then you can go out to the open market, exercise the contract, buy the shares for 30 and pocket the difference. You could also sell the put for 30, which means you're obligated to buy the shares when they hit 30 at any time in the future with a set expiration date, and you pay a deposit for that also. But when you sell the option, somebody's paying you a fee to obligate you to buy those shares. So if you bought the put at 50 and sold at 30, and you exercise both, you become negative 50 shares, or at $50, and then you buy them at 30, and you pocket the difference of 20. And that's a form of a synthetic short that you're not actually paying or receiving any money. You're just doing a wash, but you make money on the stock.
Again, probably for those people that have free time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what our panelists are saying. So the question was, are stock options and put options halal? Are stock options and put options halal?
I already answered that question. In my opinion, halal is, call option will mostly be halal if they are in the halal, the stock you're buying call options, or the business itself is Sharia compliant and halal, then, generally speaking, your expectations going up in price means that they're running a good business, they're making money, therefore riba will not be affected. But I am not in favor of put options being halal, because put options usually, not always, there could be exceptions, but usually would be for those companies which are losing money, and therefore expectation would be that they are going down in the future. Therefore, you're willing to buy it, borrow it and sell it now at a higher price and then buy it later. So there will be interest involved in that company's operations. They are running their business on interest. So I would not get into put options, but I will be okay buying call options if other Islamic requirements are met.
So we'll go to Bishar next, and then we'll go to you, Mubarak. So the question is, Abdul-Sattar can answer, or can you invest in Bitcoin? It's money for money. Is that permissible?
Yeah, I am not really an investor in Bitcoins. I have just recently started to study it. I have been watching some videos and all of that. I have no problem from Islamic point of view in buying Bitcoins, because it is like, I am originally from Pakistan. I earn my money in dollars. If I go to Pakistan, I exchange it for Pakistani rupees, so I can use it over there. So it is one form of currency. You can go other places in the world, and you can exchange your dollars for the currency, local currency.
He's saying that it's not physical currency, and Saudi Arabia gave a fatwa that it's not halal.
Oh, it's a digital currency, and nothing wrong with digital currency, because that itself is a commodity. It requires, in fact, in my recent studies, I have found out that it takes a lot of money to create bitcoins. It's not just from thin air. I was reading even the use of electricity that is involved in creating a cryptocurrency is immense. And so those price, and again, that is basically just a function of supply and demand. How many are being created, how many people want to buy it, and then it's a medium of exchange, which can be similar to my going to Pakistan and converting my dollars into Pakistani rupees, or somebody going to England and converting dollars into British pounds. So it's nothing different in that respect. There is no interest involved. There is no prohibitive, from Islamic point of view, activity involved. It's creation. It's a lot of effort, lot of programming knowledge. I mean, it requires very sophisticated programming knowledge. Okay, and I have done this study just recently for the last 3-4 months, because when I started to notice it, that it's happening in the world, so I said, at least let's know what it is. And so my view at this point in time definitely is that there is nothing haram in trading bitcoins. You can buy them, you can sell them.
One second.
Same as I can go and sell dollars and buy Pakistani rupees.
We're going to go here to Amu Baraka and then you, brother.
Gold?
The question is for Abdul-Sattar. The question is, what do you think about stockbrokers? Are they honest and are they legit? And then, what do you think about investing in gold? So
well, the stockbrokers are liars, most of the time. If you day trade, you will find mistakes.
What do you think about gold?
And you would have to call for corrections, which unfortunately I have to do often, especially as of lately, because their systems are overloaded. But if you do buy a stock for X, and you hold it, and you decide to sell it later on for Y, you're not going to have a problem filling that position. It's just when you do the electronic trading really fast. Now, as far as gold, just like the chart that I showed you, you would do much better investing in any other technology company, for example, as of now, or a winning company, than buying physical gold, for example, or investing in the gold stock itself, because the return will be better. And again, this is not financial advice, just an opinion. When you buy physical gold, you have to pay a fee, a brokerage fee. And then when you sell it, you also pay a brokerage fee. So technically, just like a currency purchase, you would want to have at least an increase of 10% to break even. Because when you go to your bank and exchange US dollars to Canadian dollars, they make you pay more for it when you're buying it, and they give you less when you return it. So you want the difference, the spread, to be at least 10% more just to break even. So it really Forex has been known to be, in commodities, to be extremely manipulated. So it's something really that I wouldn't do. As far as cryptocurrency, it's very hip and everybody likes it and so on and so forth, but the only main issue with it is tracking. It's not numbered. There's supposed to be 21 million Bitcoins. Many have been lost. There's not many in circulation. However, I haven't done enough research to know who started Bitcoin, and how do you know if they introduced or added to the float 2, 3, 6, 8, 10 million more coins, because they're not numbered. So you really don't know who has coin number 1 and who has coin number 21.
Do you have any few comments on gold?
Gold? Yeah, I think it's okay as far as only gold is concerned, but it's very clear from Quran and Hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put certain very strict requirements on only gold, and very much against holding gold. Only gold requires certain nisab, that you have so much, you pay zakat on it. And if you have gold and don't pay zakat on it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran Hakim that that gold will be burned into fire, and then you will be punished with that fire. Okay? So I think as long as gold is concerned, it's okay. Hoarding it is not good. If you have that nisab of zakat for gold and silver, then you pay that. If you pay that, then it's halal. If you don't pay that, then not only it is haram, but it's a source of grave punishment on the Day of Judgment. So don't indulge into that. Now, I just wanted to also just add one thing about bitcoins. I think a lot of interest is coming into that in the general public lately. My view, this is my view, okay? It's not financial advice, but my view, that I think bitcoins have a great potential to go up substantially in next 3, 4, 5 years. And my reason for that is that trillions and trillions of dollars and euros and pounds and currencies have been created in the last couple of years, which has no substantial foundation. And that is going to create, and already there is a great question of credibility about the existing currencies, dollars, pounds, whatever. And I hope it doesn't come to true, but at least my insight says that there will be a big currency turmoil in the not too distant future, okay? 3, 4, 5 years. So I think and then as I already mentioned, that these cryptocurrencies are created with great effort, and they are very limited in quantity. They are not like you can go to a mint and print those dollar bills. It takes a lot of effort. So I think my view is that this is going to be very explosive in some near future, 3 to 5 years. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you have a question or comment? Sheikh Maswari, can you answer that question? I didn't understand the question. So there are some companies that are halal somewhere else and they're haram somewhere else?
No, I think what he's asking is, the company is cash positive. They generate lots of revenue. Their cash that sits in the bank collects interest. What do you do about the interest that these companies, so on their balance sheets, it will show interest income X. So theoretically, you could do your own calculation by dividing what the interest income is by the float, and you can define per share how much interest there is, and you can just donate it. You're not going to get any reward for it because it's riba, but that's probably the simplest way for you to take care of it. So one of the companies they have listed as an example is Airline Technology, Invisalign. It has gone up substantially. They have lots of cash, and they collect interest on it. So you just have to take the float, the interest expense, not the expense, divide it by the float, and then just subtract that from however money you're making. So one point about gold, if you're holding gold as an investment, you're paying 2.5 zakah on it yearly. So it really makes it a failed kind of investment. You're better off buying the gold miner stocks like GOLD or Barrick Gold, the ones that actually mine the gold and sell it for multiple uses, and they actually pay a dividend. I'm not recommending it, but that would be an example if that's what you wanted to own. So there's two ways of financing.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, he's talking, what if the company is actually paying out interest? That's a good question for Imam Masmari that I wouldn't know.
So-
I mean, if you're theoretically taking the interest earning and you want to do a wash against their expenses, but which expense do you want to wash it against? No, I understand that, but I'm saying is at that point, you're going to have to find one and pick. But at the end of the day, they're staying positive, right? They're cash flow positive because they have the earnings from the interest and earnings from their operations. I'm not sure, how do you quantify that? Do you wash it against one of their expenses, Sheikh Masmari, or do you... Yeah, I mean, I would...
Why don't you ask him the question?
So a company that generates earnings and generate interest from the cash they have sitting in banks. For example, like Apple, they have hordes and hordes of billions of dollars in banks, and they collect lots and lots of interest on it.
What do you think about a company that's making... What do you think about a company that's making money, but also has money in the bank accruing interest? Those companies.
I do not favor those companies. I think that will be a question. That will be talbisul haqqa bil batil. You're mixing your legitimate profits with haram money. And when you do that, the result is not halal.
The problem is, most of the winning companies will have you want them to have hordes of cash. You want them to be...
there are a lot of softwares available, and this is one he's pointing out to, but there are a lot of other, you can, research and find softwares which will allow you to screen companies by your criteria that you want to see what is their involvement in the interest and what kind of business, and all kinds of parameters you can define, and you can search stocks and come up with a list which will be compliant, Sharia compliant. So you can do it yourself, or you can go to one of those professionals and let them do it for you. Question. Yeah,
Maybe we can ask these questions after. Let's give other people some more questions so we can get more questions in the next 5 minutes.
Not discourage people from buying gold. That's the real currency.
Yeah.
Everything collapsed, but stays gold. Country in the world needs that gold, whatever you anyway, you need to pay zakat for yourself.
अगर मुझसे कुछ पूछना है तो इसमें पूछो मुझसे. If you want to ask me something.
So the comment was made just for the viewers that gold is still a commodity, an asset. Don't just blow it off, inshallah. Keep it as an investment if you have the ability to. I'll go with the youth. Yeah. That's what I mentioned, that you're going to find difference of opinions on this, and that's one opinion. Then there are other opinions where you don't even want to get involved in it, okay? So we'll just leave it at that, okay? So we'll go to Mohsin Bhai.
Correct.
So the question is it permissible to invest in Apple now that they have that credit card?
What?
In Apple?
Apple computer? No, in my opinion at this time, because they have just started recently a credit card, and their income has quite a bit part of interest from those credit financial activities. They are earning a lot of interest. So I will not buy Apple. I would...
Is the Islamic, they invest in Apple.
No, but see,
He's saying there are Muslim companies that are investing in Apple, and they're doing it purification, where they're donating profits from the interest.
Well, I can't comment on that. If they are doing it and what their justification is, I have no idea.
No, I think I have the explanation for it.
In my opinion, since they started, for example, I think you need to do some, as a Muslim, it's my responsibility to do my research about any investment I'm making, to make sure that it complies with laws of Allah and ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I don't want to, وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا بِآيَاتِي ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا. I don't want to sell my future, my akhirah, for some gain in this world. And that is very small. I mean, it qualifies under that. وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا بِآيَاتِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا. I don't want to sell my akhirah for that small amount of profit that I may make over here. So I must do my research very diligently and make sure that, no, I must qualify with that also. Sometimes people ask me that question also. We are responsible only for what we have control. We are not responsible in the sight of Allah for things which are not in my control. For example, okay, somebody asked me a question, this car that I drive, okay, I pay cash for it, or I rent it, okay. So my transaction is Sharia compliant. But am I responsible whether that car that I have was manufactured in a plant which did not involve interest? I'm not accountable for that, okay. That was a decision the car company made, and they are accountable for that. If they finance that factory and they build their car totally based on some interest-based thing. But when I bought it basically as a cash transaction or interest-free transaction. Let me put it that way. Okay. So I'm fine with that. The road I drive on, the government which built that road, how did they finance it? I'm not accountable for that. I'm accountable for the decision that I make. So I think that's a very fundamental, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. Allah is very clear about it. And then, فَمَنِ اسْتُرَ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. Allah also says that if for some reason I am in a very compulsive situation where I have no other choice, I mean, Rasulullah and even from Quran, I can even eat haram in a desperate situation and Allah will forgive me. Okay, but if I do it as a habit, if I do it to improve my quality of life I want to become, rich and all that, and I do it from that point of view, no, it is not permissible in my view. And there is Imam, he can say more about this, but I think that I am responsible for all the decisions I make. I'm not responsible for decisions some other people make. Okay, so.
Oh, just a comment on the credit card. It's through Goldman Sachs. Apple really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's a co-branded credit card. So I don't think Apple makes hardly any revenue from it.
This has been such a fruitful question and answer. If Imam allows, maybe after Salah, if you guys still have more questions and you want discussion, we can continue that. But inshallah, I'll bring up the Imam for closing remarks, inshallah.
Allah yajzikum al-khair. Jazakum Allah khair, our dear panelists, for your time and knowledge. Of course, this is a very complicated topic, and there will always be differences of opinion in this matter. And of course, there's always ongoing ijtihadat. Ulama continue to investigate, continue to search. It's a changing world. And this necessitates ongoing knowledge. But just one thing I wanted to point out about the airlines, because especially in America, it will almost be impossible to find something that is 100%. Almost impossible. There is some, but even these Islamic banks that we take loans from to buy our homes are taking interest-based loans. And it goes back and forth. And this is why you have a lot of ulama that are even revisiting, even among them whom attended Amja, are revisiting this, not the riba, revisiting these masail, these questions regarding Islamic banking. Is it really Islam? So you will always find differences of opinion. But one fiqhi maxim that I would like to share, and we find this in our tradition. It's a يَجُوزُ فِي التَّابِعِ مَا لَا يَجُوزُ فِي الْأَصْلِ. This is one of our fiqhi maxims. يَجُوزُ فِي التَّابِعِ مَا لَا يَجُوزُ فِي الْأَصْلِ. Okay? So what is allowed as secondary may not be allowed as a primary. Okay? And under this maxim, Allah Jalla khair, I know he was against the airlines, and under this maxim, they allow investing in airlines. Why? Because the asl, the original, the primary source of traveling is not to drink, but rather to travel. Right? So you get on the plane, no one travels to different countries around the world so they can get drunk, but they travel for the sake of traveling. That's the asl. If the asl of whatever you're being part of is permissible, then of course there is some flexibility in the tabi', which is the add-ons, because you may not have control of it. And by this, it's again, this is a fiqhi maxim, subhanAllah, very old, but you find that our ulama were a bit flexible on the secondary incomes and not the primary. If the primary is haram, then there's nothing that allows it, nothing can change it. Haram will always be haram. But, and again, there's always back and forth. There's always back, but as Imam Ali wa Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhuma would say, that no one is allowed to engage in our market unless they have learned all about the market. لا يدخلن في سوقنا من لم يتفقه في الدين. That they did not allow someone to get into the market unless they had some type of fiqh. So when getting into the stock market, do a lot of research, because you and I are seeking rizqul halal. But I just wanted to end with that. Allah yajzikum anna kulla khair. Thank you all. Thank you. This is a very tough. I know I couldn't do it. May Allah bless you. Jazakumullah khair. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
We're blessed to have Sheikh Ishaq Samura here with us to lead Isha Salah. What a blessing and honor, ya Sheikh. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله. استووا ولا تراصوا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت وإذا البحار فجرت وإذا القبور بعثرت علمت نفس ما قدمت وأخرت يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك كلا بل تكذبون بالدين وإن عليكم لحافظين كراما كاتبين يعلمون ما تفعلون إن الأبرار لفي نعيم وإن الفجار لفي جحيم يصلونها يوم الدين وما هم عنها بغائبين وما أدراك ما يوم الدين ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين يوم لا تملك نفس لنفس